After speaking a bit more about the later stages, the growth capital, the state of the market, we thought it to be good to look all the way at the beginning of where the entrepreneurial journey begins, and the funding comes more from the angels, the pre-seed funds, and around the table here we have a number of people that have a great mix of entrepreneurial backgrounds and now many, many years of combined investor experience. I'll quickly introduce you. Right next to me we have Iskar Hartmann, who is a serial entrepreneur who created multiple unicorns. He's now a philanthropist and one of the most active angels in Germany. Iskar invested in more than 100 companies over the past 10 years, including in companies like Auto One, Flush and Post, and Sender. Then, next to Iskar, we have Videesha, who is a serial entrepreneur who helped build multiple venture funds, with the latest being Altitude, a pan-European early-stage fund focusing on SME tech. Previously, she was the founder and MD of Signal Venture Capital, where she coined the term innovation ecosystem for corporate investment services for startups. Then Tanja is a partner and head of the Berlin office at HTGF, one of the most established German pre-seed and seed funds with over 2 billion assets under management, having invested in more than 750 startups since 2005. Tanja is with HTGF for more than a decade. Then Konstantin is the founder of SuperAngels. He also founded... sorry. Konstantin, you're the founder of G-Fund. You're a serial entrepreneur as well. You founded companies such as Parship.com, Windelday, and the end backed Windom from all the way at the seed stage to the IPO stage in the 2010s. 3 years ago, you founded G-Fund together with the founders of MyBags to support aspiring entrepreneurs building consumer companies at pre-seed to Series A stage. We have invested with you together in our portfolio company, Edorino, and I've learned that you're doing currently 2 investments per quarter. Alex, then over to you. You have also founded several companies. Amazing how much entrepreneurial experience we have here around the table. You founded, amongst others, 12snap, Shopstar, and Windom. That's where you were together for many years. 1.5 years ago, you founded SuperAngels, which is an angel fund with a network of 40 angel investors. You co-invest with other angels into technology companies, and in the past 18 months, you have made 42 investments. Wow. So to start off, I would love to learn from the ones here that bring that entrepreneurial experience and understand how you apply the learnings from that side of the table now on the other side of the table. Why don't we go from left to right?
Yeah, I think every time I want to invest in a company, I actually have a conversion rate of 100% somehow. So the entrepreneurs are very happy to take money from somebody who knows how it's like to be them. I know the struggle, how difficult it is, and I'm super founder friendly. So, my main goal is to not make life more difficult for the founder than it already is. It's insane difficult to build a unicorn. You don't have to make it more difficult, putting virtual obstacles. So I guess I always have the founder mindset, just trying to make it easier for, what can I do to make it easier for you? I have real empathy, how it is like, and especially now, it's super tough. A lot of my founders are going through periods of down rounds, pay to play. Not many will make it to the other side, so how do you help them not write themselves off? So that's kind of my focus at the moment.
Yeah, for myself, we started fundraising last year, probably the worst time fundraising for a fund in a decade. And so there's a lot of humility that comes with standing in front of investors and asking for capital. And that's something that definitely we bring to the table now when we meet with founders in this economic climate right now, where it's very difficult to go fundraising. We've learned a lot along the process of the actual fundraising itself. We're talking about angel investing, very early stage businesses, first checks sometimes. There's a lot to be said about clarity, messaging, storytelling, and all of these elements is very, very crucial in a market like today, where capital is scarce. It's really tough to convince people that you're the right company to back or you're the right product to back. So I think that's been a big learning in the entrepreneurial journey for us.
So from the fund side, I think it's very important that everyone in the fund also thinks very entrepreneurial. So we have like people on board that have an entrepreneurial background, but we have others with a technical background or coming from the business side. But it's very important that they are all a helping hand at the beginning, and they know what it is, how to act as an entrepreneur. And then sometimes, there are a lot of regulations, but you have to deal with that differently. So you'd always try to have that thinking and that mindset on your way. Otherwise, you don't get them going for the first moves.
Yeah, pretty much the same that Oskar said. I mean, the founders, first of all, they like to take your money right now because it's harder to fundraise with consumer companies than it is in the past. But secondly, because all in the G Fund, we're all entrepreneurs, the two young guys that are still running their own startup, MyBex, which is really doing tremendously well. I mean, then they like to take our money because we can sort of understand, like you said, it's not so much we cannot help them run their business, and we shouldn't, but at least we know that it's tough, and that, I mean, Alex, we wrote, until the IPO, I think we wrote 70 business plans, and we had a Chinese business coming that we didn't expect when we started the business, and it basically saved us, and we could do the IPO because of that. So many things will happen on the way. It's not a straight line, and if sort of as an entrepreneurial investor, you understand that. And it's also about, if you have the choice, of course, about which investors to choose. You can also sort of advise on that. We had, or I sort of experienced cases where investors, let's say it's a hedge fund or just investors that don't normally do early stage investing, they just don't understand that it's a straight line, and they want to shut the business down after 6 months because you don't reach your business plan, or you do something else that you originally intended to do. I mean, that kind of thing, or you take on a strategic investor, which is very often at early stage can be a really bad thing, especially if it's going well, because they don't want to overtake the company, they don't want you to grow, things like that. So there's a lot sort of we can apply from the experience that we had as a founder.
Yes, being the last one on that round, obviously I can echo a lot what you said. There's another element to business angels which I want to emphasize. It's not about only money and giving entrepreneurial support. Ideally, you also give some real sector support with networks, with advice, ideally also with your own judgment of the business. And that makes it difficult, because when you look at myself, I have a background in e-commerce. Now, I wouldn't invest in e-commerce these days, at least not in pure plays. But then when looking at companies in prop tech or fintech or HR tech, of course I can help a little bit when it comes to the entrepreneurial general challenges. But when it comes to the specific challenges in prop tech, I have very little experience. So I rather partner with other business angels on that have these experiences. Because I think that is something that the founders very rarely get, something that is truly helping them, especially on the networking side.
And so the two of you literally just said the strength of bringing the experience, either via the angel network or yourself coming from the consumer background. How does that work for you, where you have a much more spread over different industries experience? Do you think that's as relevant as it was just said?
I also have an angel network. I funded, there's a Midas list for VC, and I funded a list called Arete Index for Business Angels, which is the top 1,000 business angels in the world, and I try to unite the ununited. But generally, my sectors have been the brutal. So I do e-commerce, fintech, property tech, and B2B marketplaces. And all my sectors are down 90%. I did 10 investments in Q-commerce, 10 investments around the world in 15-minute grocery delivery. 8 are bankrupt, 2 are still fighting for their life. Flink and Onigo. You see, Nenad is having a good time. I invested. No, it's good. I like it. You know, you have to take the pain. You know, it's. Then I was in 7 countries in the Amazon seller, aggregation businesses. So e-commerce is down big time. In property tech, the only hope in the world is Christian with Numa. Everybody else is dead. Like Numa is like the last cockroach after the atomic winter. And it's not like the cockroach doesn't know is it good or bad, you know, that I'm the only one who survived. Let's see, you know, I'm still good. And obviously fintech, it was like the best business model ever. All of a sudden it was like the worst business model ever. By the way, it's amazing how seasonal the industry is, you know, like at QCOM at some point we had a 30% conversion rate from reaching out to investors to getting a term sheet. And then at like one moment of time it went to zero. Like there was no more money, like from the best business model in the world to the worst. And then basically fintech is, everything is down. So basically my strategy right now is endure the pain and hope we make it to the other side, right? So because at the moment I have only two strategies. One is my worst hit industries and stick to your guns. And on the other side, there's the 99 AI complete bubble where you invest like in a $50 million round seed, invested 50 million, not valuation, you know. And then it's like, okay, I prefer to be in the let's say in the winter market, and hopefully we come to the pendulum will swing to the other side again. So I believe in these business models. I believe in this property tech business model. I think this, even this Q-commerce, I still believe it. Hopefully Flink can prove it, and some of the guys. So I focus only on 4 industries, and other than that, I'm actually buying up equity in unicorns. So I created my own target list of 150 top unicorns, like the top 10%, and I'm buying up from other business angels who want to exit. I'm buying up equity because I think most of these companies are down 75%, and I think it's quite cheap.
Interesting. But so you do focus on 4 specific verticals. How does that work for you, Videesha? Do you feel you can identify some industries or trends that hopefully are not as hit hard as some of the ones Oskar just mentioned?
That's a really good question. And when we think about investing today, and especially early investing, right? You're an angel investor or an early stage investor. Typically, you'll be looking for alpha. So typically, you'll be looking to invest and see things that other people don't see. Otherwise, you're overpaying the odds. You're paying more in pre-money valuations, etc. So it's surprising to, or maybe not surprising, last year, I think 30% of all global venture capital went to AI, for instance. We are Europe's SME tech fund. So we are investing in a part of B2B, which is selling technologies to organizations that have between 20 and 500 employees, so the long tail of B2B. And traditionally, this hasn't been very sexy. You've got low ACVs, you typically have high churn, and you have high CACs. And I think what we see there is, though, this against the macroeconomic backdrop, where you have interest rates that reach a 23-year high, where in 2019, interest rates started increasing, and only now, just last week, the ECB started to bring them down. But all small business owners in general are under huge amounts of pressure to rethink the way that they do business. You probably saw Klarna remove 50% of its tech stack, replaced Workday and Salesforce with AI solutions that they had built actually in-house. So I think there are other shifts happening in the market in terms of regulation, et cetera. And I think when you're early stage investing, angel investing, it's typically about looking in new areas where others may not be looking in order to create this alpha. And for us, that is this SME tech area. So we invested in a company last year called Dentist. It's an automated accounts receivable. Great company, 3 guys. But as Oskar said, no one was interested in fintech last year. So they went and spoke to a whole bunch of VCs. Loads of people said no. We said yes. We were in the first round. And those guys are now over 2 million in ARR within that time frame. So I think looking beyond is really valuable.
How does that work at HTGF, which is known for also making a high number of early stage investments each year in the German market specifically? How do you look at this?
Yeah, so we make 40 deals per year, so that's quite a lot. And we also we invest in technology, but also very agnostic, and it's a bit like Videesha said, so we're very early in seed, so if that's a hype in seed, so we have to think about it then in exit time, is that still a hype, or is that might be over? So we have like 10 years ago, we made it some investments into sustainability. Well, that time it was a bit, very strange. Okay, that's very special, but nothing hyped. And now the time is to exit, so we see that it's a hype topic. So this helps a bit. So we are very agnostic in what we invest in, but of course we also look in those topics like AI and looking at it, what's valuable in Germany for the future industries, climate tech, all the deep tech topics, and so on and so forth. But also have an eye on, so what could possibly be interesting for others investors coming in the deal later on, and then what's really hyped at the exit.
And Konstantin, with the consumer side of things a bit slow, to say the least, how does that work for your team and finding the needle in the...
I mean, it was certainly tougher to fundraise. I mean, we only have a small fund, which is partially our own money and partially from people that sort of trust us or network people, so it wasn't that hard, but still it was harder than let's say 3-4 years ago. But I mean, the good thing is we don't follow trends, so we don't invest in AI or anything like that. So we invest in things that are not very fashionable at the moment, like e-commerce or like direct to consumer and those kind of companies. But I like it, and we like it, because as a new fund we get into deals that normally it's much harder to get into if you're a new fund, and the valuations are okay. I mean, they're still, I wouldn't say they're low for good companies, but they're not sort of inflated, so they're okay. So as long as you sort of do the old game that doesn't change in venture capital, I mean, look for the best teams and look for business models that you believe in. Then we are perfectly fine with right now investing in stuff that are not that fashionable. The only thing that we care about as a small fund, that we know we invest alongside companies like DN, where also they could potentially do the next round. So if it's hard to fundraise, we don't want to be stuck sort of as a small fund. We cannot invest whatever out of our fund, 2 million into one company. So we want to make sure that of course, always if things go well, but if fundraising is tough, that there are funds out there or in the company already that can do the next round. So the company then can build the model and sort of flourish. That's the only thing we look for. Otherwise, we're perfectly happy in what we do.
And Alexander, with so many voices around the table, many angels that have an amazing track record that you work with, how do you find the balance between what might be hype, push from them versus making the great call?
It is. Let me build on what Tanja said earlier. Wherever we invest today as early stage investors, it will come successfully to an exit in 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years. So my hypothesis, or later as Nenad, my hypothesis on what is going to be hype in 10 years might be right, might be wrong. And I think therefore the key thing is you have to have a diversification that is that is taking the risk into account. When I look at what we all do here, we have in our investments, we have a 50% chance that the companies will just go bankrupt and disappear into nothing. And we have probably a 1% chance that the companies will be superstars and unicorns at some point. Now, what does that mean? A 1% chance of a success. It means if you invest into 20 companies, it's a bit like playing the lottery. If you want to do something risk adequate to this, you need to invest in 100, in 200 companies. That's what HTGF is doing, and that's exactly what we are doing, because I don't know what's going to be hype in 10 years. I simply don't. And I don't pretend to.
Does anyone have a view then, if we can't identify the hype in 10 years, where should Germany be heading in the next 10 years? What are the learnings from other ecosystems that can still be applied here?
The innovation agenda from the Deutsche Startup Verband came out on Tuesday, actually, and it's the Innovation Agenda 2030. And they were talking about where Germany should be positioned over the next 10 years. And it's interesting, 2 key areas came out. One was deep tech, and the other was climate technologies. And Germany has a very long tradition of having fantastic engineering universities. You have some of the best in the world, and you have fantastic engineers. And I'm from the London ecosystem now, but I lived here in Germany for 9 years. And I think that is definitely an area, deep tech, where I see a lot of LP appetite for this, and also venture capital appetite, and also the startups that are being built around deep tech.
I mean, one easy win would be to get rid of this entire notarius, power of attorney shit. Like, I have, you know, like, there's so many angels that don't invest in Germany at all, and the only reason is they don't want to deal with this notarius, whatever. Like, you can make 100 investments in the US, you have less admin than with 2 investments in Germany. And it's completely not market reason, it's just convenience reason. It should be easy. I think it's easy to get rid of. By the way, in the US, you had, in 21, you had almost 5 million people investing as angels, in angels list, and so it was massive. Now the number is down 80%. So the number was 50 billion that angels invested per year. Now it's down to 20 billion. So basically all the tourists left in 2021. There were so many tourists, millions of angels, millions. But now, obviously, I think in Germany, UK has a lot of angels. US has crazy amount of angels. UK has this tax law where it's very convenient, and I think Germany has the smallest amount of angels in this comparison. Maybe it's better than Japan, but I think there should be something done to encourage much more people, even broader retail investors, to invest in startups.
I think like the central industry for Germany always has been the automotive industry, and we know how much this industry is at risk, and many other industries are building and delivering to that industry. So if this industry is over, we have to think about it, what's the next big industry that could be built up here? And I think that's the big chance of the whole startup industry, because they can bring up the innovations, the technology, and can build on the resources like engineers that are in the country, and then go for industries, might be climate tech, might be other things, but then take the chance to get the innovation there and build upon that.
Any final words coming out of Munich?
I mean, when you look at what the government is doing with the innovation agenda, that is so broad that I think everybody here in this room would fall under this area, because I think we all do deep tech and tech investments. Yes, if you start a restaurant, then maybe you not get funding, but anything other than that, it doesn't give much of a guidance. Of course, you can look at some mega trends like the society getting older and climate being a problem and all these things, but even that is so broad that it's really hard to say which are the successful companies that are funded today that come to an exit in 10 years. I think we have to acknowledge that and also see the advantage in that, because it's at the end, it's our reason for existence. If we would know who's successful, it wouldn't be called venture capital.
Maybe as being sort of the oldest on the panel, what I can say is that it's been much worse like 20, 30 years ago. There was nothing in Germany. I mean, there was, when we started Holzbrink Ventures at the time, there were maybe 2 or 3 corporate VCs, and then there was Wellington, and I think Early Bird was already around, but it was hardly any money, and today, I mean, there's so many people that we all have calls all the time with entrepreneurs, and there's so many young people starting companies in Germany, and still not comparable to the US and not comparable to the UK, but there's also, if you have a good idea, you can get funding in Germany, and there are also angels that fund you that have made money before, so it's in a much better situation. So the only thing I could say to our politicians is don't fuck it up. I mean, and let the people do their business. I mean, and of course there are things that can be improved, but I don't have much hope that will improve anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, there've been 2001 crash. There's a 2008 crash. Now we have a little crash. Probably in 3 years from now, everybody wants direct-to-consumer and e-commerce companies. So,
yeah.
So keep on investing. You know.
Thank you for those positive words to close off with. I do think Germany has grown tremendously. That's also one of the reasons why we have grown our office here. last thing I just want to say is thank you very much for this lively conversation, and on to the next one. Thanks.